Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I am your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a very, very accomplished professional turned social entrepreneur, Mr. Ashish Srivastav. Ashish, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Ashish is the founder and managing director of Sajhi Mitti, and he has earlier spent several years in the pharmaceutical world. So, Ashish, before we get into discussing Sajhi Mitti, tell me about your journey from the pharma world to agriculture.
Purely by chance, Ashutosh. Mm-hmm. So I started my journey in pharmaceutical industry as a sales rep, right the first rung of the pharmaceutical industry. That was way back, 1995. I therefore went over to serve in several leadership roles in top pharma and medical devices companies, spread across India, China, Asia Pacific region for almost 25 years. As I mentioned, purely by coincidence, actually as a real estate investment, I came in contact with the agriculture sector. And when I understood the opportunity, I tested the ground for almost 2 years. And then finally, I took the plunge almost 2 years ago by launching Sajhi Mitti.
Wonderful. And what is the meaning of Sajhi Mitti?
Well, Sajhi Mitti is a Hindi word which means shared earth. Sajhi means shared. Mitti is for soil, so shared earth.
Okay.
In many ways, it's a business model as well as the concept of doing agriculture in the regenerative manner.
Wonderful. So tell me a little bit about what you do at Sajhi Mitti and what was your motivation to start?
Sure. My motivation was very simple. It was the opportunity. The sheer size of the opportunity is just massive. Ashutosh. I mean, I must admit, I know nothing about agriculture even now. But back then, 2 years ago, I had no contact with this world. I had zero idea about what agriculture, what farming is all about. But the opportunity that it presents is extraordinary, Ashutosh. Almost 70% of Indians are into agriculture one way or the other. That's the sheer human capital behind it. As a percentage of GDP, it's huge and growing, and perhaps something that is holding this country's economy still together when almost everything else crumbled during the COVID time. So that's how important it is for our country. But the sheer size of it, financially speaking, the total addressable market, the scalability, the ability to differentiate in this marketplace, so huge. And even socially speaking, the social impact that we can create here, this sector, in spite of it being so big and so important, is riddled with so many social issues. I'm sure you must have heard about the farmer suicides and the abject poverty they live in. So socially speaking, also the opportunity to create social impact, the ability to create climate impact. One of the biggest problems that our planet is facing today through agriculture is enormous. So I think that is something which really excited me, as a genuine opportunity of doing well by doing good. So that is what drew me towards Sajhi.
So Ashish, I'm still not clear. I mean, you've told me about the huge opportunity in the agricultural sector, which I think everyone knows about, and the problems. But what does Sajhi Mitti do? I mean, you're not handling land, and you're not handling suicides, and you're not handling all the other things. So I want to understand, what exactly do you do at Sajhi Mitti?
Yeah, that's a fair question. At Sajhi Mitti, I think our agent of change is what we eat, our food, right? And what we do in this is we help marginalized farmers move towards regenerative agriculture, and therefore produce the healthiest of crops. And then we help urban families consume these healthy produce.
So can you give me some specific examples? Because these are very, very huge statements that we help people with food, and we help people with farmers, and we help people in marginalized farmers, etc. But that's what the entire agricultural sector is, which is 50% of the GDP of this country.
Yes, true. So very simply speaking, conventionally about 50 to 60 years ago, we moved towards chemical agriculture, which means we used, as much chemical in our agriculture as we could, largely to grow more and to prevent our crops from being eaten away by insects and stuff. And that's how the whole green revolution started. Eventually, this has led to degradation of our soil, and therefore our addiction to these chemicals grew more and more and still continues to grow. Regenerative farming is a method of farming in which we use no external inputs. Okay, no fertilizers, no pesticides, no preservatives, nothing. So I'll give you an example of turmeric. Turmeric is one of the biggest cash crops that Sajhi Mitti deals with. It's one of the value chains, and we use zero chemicals, zero pesticides, zero fertilizers, no processing, so to say, no preservatives, so to say, and we help the farmers grow this. Now it's a technique, so it needs to be learned, and that is what we help our farmers with. And then we process this and give it to our families who are ready to buy it at whatever price is fair to the marketplace.
Okay.
So that's a simple value proposition.
Understand. So now you've given me something specific like turmeric. Tell me what goes into farming turmeric. What are the roles that you play, and what are the value adds you do?
Sure. So we do value adds at two levels. One is at the growing. Now, growing of turmeric using chemicals is a very different process.
Yeah.
Growing the turmeric using regenerative farming is a totally different construct. So regenerative farming, very simple proposition is that we believe that nature has all the nutrition available for the plants in the nature itself. So we don't need to give any external input. For example, if they need nitrogen, we need to use nitrogen fixing crops along with that. If we need to have potash, then we need to have potash giving plants like bananas, all. So we grow multiple crops together, and that's a method. Nothing technical about it, nothing very difficult about it. But the farmers don't know it. They need to be educated. They need to be handheld. Once you do that, once in for 1 year, one crop cycle, they become pretty much an expert into that, and then they. So we do, quite like in pharmaceutical industry, we do train the trainer. So we have a mandate to cover about 50,000 farmers across Maharashtra. We are doing that in batches of 50. We train 50 farmers. We handhold them for 1 year. They become expert trainers, and then they handhold 50 further. So last year we did 25. This year we're doing 1,000. Next year we'll be doing 50,000. So that's how we're growing up. So the first value add we do is we handhold these farmers, and this is a contact sport, Ashutosh. So you cannot do that via a web streaming or through a mobile call. Sure. You need to be there in the terrain, literally on the field for almost 9 months, and then help them do this. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is processing, the conventional processing of turmeric. We see turmeric as turmeric powder that we consume in our kitchens, but it's very different when it is, taken out from the field. Unfortunately, that by the time it's taken out from the field and by the time it lands up on our dining table, nearly 95% of the nutrition of turmeric is lost. It just remains a yellow coloring agent. All the beautiful medicines inside it, the nutrition inside, the curcumin, the oleoresins, all are lost. And it's largely because of the way it is grown and the way it is processed. Okay. If I tell you the processing, process, it's numbing. It almost goes on for 30 days, and it involves so much of heat and rigor and friction that almost everything is lost. So we do something which is called as minimally processed process. We call it nutri-secure processing. So we help the farmers with that as well. And then we create forward linkages using portals, using e-commerce platforms, and we help these farmers reach out to the end consumers so they can buy it.
Okay, very interesting. You said also that, let me ask you for my viewers and listeners, when you say regenerative farming, is it the same as organic farming?
No. So organic farming essentially does not use external chemical fertilizers and pesticides, but they still use organic pesticides. They still use organic fertilizers, and it's a problem in itself. Organic fertilizers also release a whole lot of methane, and that itself becomes a carbon problem for the world. And in our regenerative farming, we essentially regenerate the soil, hence the name regenerative farming. And it requires no external inputs, not even organic fertilizers, organic pesticides. So nothing at all.
Understand. And then let's continue with the example of the haldi. You said that once you've grown it, then what are the special processes that you use so that 90% of the nutrition of turmeric is not lost?
Sure, and that's a great question. Let me first give you, from perspective point of view, what is the current process? What is the conventional process? So once the turmeric is taken out of the soil, it is boiled for almost 1 hour. And that is essentially to kill all the soil-borne pathogens and stuff like that, and to release the color of the turmeric. Unfortunately, when you do that at 100 degrees, most of the volatile chemicals like the oils and the oleoresins and curcumin, it just essentially degenerates because it's proteins, really, right? And after that, it is exposed to harsh sun for 15 days at a stretch. It completely dries out. After that, it is put into a special machine, which is called a polisher, which essentially rotates at very high RPMs of around 1,000 RPM. So it peels off the skin of the turmeric. And after that, it is put into grinding machines, which rotates at around 40,000 RPM. And the heat releases so much that a freshly ground turmeric, you can't hold it in your hand. It's so hot. With all that heat and friction, what happens is all these delicate nutrients, they just break down and they're lost. It's nothing. It's just chemistry, right? And so that's the conventional process. So what we do is essentially, once we take the turmeric out, it is steamed for precisely 3 minutes. That kills off all the pathogens and other stuff, which is without harming the oils and oleoresins inside it. After that, it is gently boiled at 60 degrees in mildly warm water for about 10 to 15 minutes. That is used for bringing out the color in the turmeric and for basically gelatinizing the starch in the turmeric rhizome.
Right.
After that, it is sliced up and it is dried up in solar dehydrators, which maintains a temperature from 50 degrees to 55 degrees. And it dries up in barely 6 hours instead of 15 days. Right. And that too at just 55 degrees. So that is essentially what preserves all the nutrition inside. And after that, it is just, it is ground also using a low RPM machine, which grinds at 40 RPM. Instead of 4,000 RPMs, it rotates at only 40 RPM, and it preserves the nutrition. That's all. It's just simple chemistry.
No, that's fantastic. That's a great example. And then when you sell this to the market, do you go with your own brand, or how do people who are viewers and listeners identify that these products coming out of Sajhi Mitti and therefore they are better?
Yes. So for the time being, we were doing it through the informal WhatsApp channels. We were very Bombay focused, and we were doing it in the societies in Mumbai. But we are structuring it better now. We have launched our own brands called Turmeric. It will be launched in the month of June. 20th June is the launch date. And we are using all channels. It will be available on Amazon, on Flipkart. We are launching our own website, turmeric.com. You can buy it from there. So all these channels we are opening up from 20th of June.
Wonderful. You also mentioned that you use the profits to improve the livelihood of farmers and accelerate rural development. Tell me a little bit about the work you're doing and maybe give me an example.
Certainly. So what we do is, Ashutosh, we created 3 organizations. Structurally, we build Sajhi Mitti such that the value is highest for the farmers and the consumers.
Right.
So the first organization we created is Sajhi Mitti Farmer Producer Company. So the Farmer Producer Company, the shareholders are farmers. Industrialists cannot become members of this FPC.
Right.
So number one, so the farmers have a seat at the table. They are not just growers. They're business people. They own the enterprise. Second organization we created was Sajhi Mitti Enterprises, which is a trading arm, which is a selling arm. So all these products that you will buy from turmeric or from the portal or from the e-commerce site, all will be sold by the Sajhi Mitti Enterprises. Now, even here, the farmer producer company has a 50% stake in it. So the farmers directly get at least 50% of the value chain directly going to them. So we are not just giving them the best value. So by the way, the turmeric we buy from the farmers is at twice the value that is available in the marketplace. 2 times. So not only we give them more than a fair share of value, but they also own the entire value chain because they have 50% stake in the trading market. The third organization we created is Sajhi Mitti Foundation. That's a not-for-profit NGO. So 50% profit that enterprises generates through business is donated to Sajhi Mitti Foundation. And that goes straight to 3 projects: education, healthcare, and rural infrastructure. Right? So currently, although our profits are very small, but we are owning up a school in our village. It's a school for about 150 children. Extremely marginalized communities, they're mostly tribals. We take care of their midday meals, their books, their education, the infrastructure, the water, the toilets, everything that we've created, we're doing for them. So, small part that we do.
No, that's fantastic. So, tell us also a little bit about the challenges that you face in building the organization, in growing the turmeric, in processing it, in marketing it.
I think my learnings have been two. When you scale up, I didn't realize it earlier. I realized just about 2 years ago. Structure is very important. Initially I tried to do this, on my own. Let me do it as a good Samaritan and stuff like it. It never works because once you scale, once you reach from 25 to 1,000, you go from 1,000 to 50,000. You just can't do it out of your sheer passion. You have to create structure, and that's when I created these organizations. The FPC was created, wherein all the affairs related to farmers are handled by the farmers themselves. There are leaders within their community who handle everything. The trading company was created, Sajhi Mitti Enterprises, which takes care of everything related to business, to marketing, to sales, to forward location.
Right.
And the foundation was created. I mean, even doing good is hard work. Right. So, creating structure is very important. And I think that is something that has been my learning. Second, Ashutosh, is trust. I was an outsider in the village. When I went there, I was the idiot from the city who knew nothing about the village life. And, to win their trust, to get them to work with you, when their experiences have not been so great with urban communities, was a challenge. And it took me almost 2 years to earn their trust. Okay. I think intentions are very important. I think it takes very, very genuine effort to win that. Unless you earn that, it's impossible to work in that community, or that matter, any organization for that.
Very interesting.
So these two were the biggest challenges and learnings for me.
Fantastic. And what is the response that you are getting from consumers?
Fabulous. So one of the principals consumers for us are the housewives. Because our houses are managed through our kitchens, and our kitchens, the landlords are the women of the family. So it's been fantastic. I mean, they say there are 3 problems. When we first interviewed them and tried to understand what their problems are. So they said, look, we don't know where to get this organic stuff. It's not easily available. We can go to the 5-star malls, but when I need stuff, and my roadside grocer doesn't have them. Number 2, the kind of money that is being charged for the organic stuff on the name of it is just crazy. 3 to 5 times the cost of regular stuff is just not something which is easily manageable in our budget.
Right.
Third, they said that we are not sure whether this is organic or not, because it's a scam. There is no predictability of where this is being produced. So the credibility was not great. And we took this head on. We said that, all right, we'll treat each one of them and we'll manage this. Number 1, we'll give you complete visibility. So each one of our farm members are being connected by blockchain. You can simply scan a QR code and you can get to know where your produce is coming from, contact them if you like. So complete traceability. Number 2, we said we'll price it responsibility, not 3 to 5 times. Our premium will be just 20% over the chemically grown produce. And that was something which our consumers really love it. And third, we said that we'll give you complete transparency of how we are producing it. Right from the growing to the processing, we'll give you complete transparency. You see and judge for yourself whether it makes it. So that's something which is being loved by our consumers a lot.
Amazing. So Ashish, I have time for one more question. And this is for the many, many people who will listen to our conversation. Based on your own journey of a professional turned entrepreneur, what are 3 lessons you would like our viewers and listeners to take away from our conversation?
Sure. I think if I were to rate it, maybe number 1, I would say always think win-win. In any kind of a situation, there are more than 2, at least 2 stakeholders. If you think only about yourself or you only think about the other person, chances are things will not work out. So always think win-win. More you give, chances are more you will receive. Second, network relentlessly. I think bigger your networks are, bigger your help is, bigger your support is, higher are your chances of success. This is something which is again a lesson that I learned very late in my life. Networks are everything, and they stay with you if they are genuine about it. Number 3, see setbacks and set forwards as leverage points. Setbacks are a leverage point. You did something which didn't quite work out. There's learning in there. Pick that up and leverage it. Set forwards are also not permanent. It's a small set forward. Think of it, what worked well, use it as a leverage point. People who understand this are more equanimous and perhaps more successful as well. So these are the 3 big learnings that I have had. I'm not sure if they are useful for others, this is something that works for me.
All learnings are useful. And on that note, Ashish, and your 3 words of wisdom or 3 sentences of wisdom, which is think win-win, network relentlessly, and look at setbacks and set forward as leverage points. Thank you so much for speaking to me. Thank you for talking to me about Sajhi Mitti and the work you're doing currently with turmeric, and I'm sure there'll be many more products in your business plan. Thank you also for talking to me about the benefits and how this whole thing of regenerating farming seems to be changing in a small area, and I'm sure once it takes off, it'll snowball across a very, very large area of our agriculture. Thank you again for speaking to me, and good luck.
Thank you, Ashutosh. Pleasure to have you here, and wonderful to talk to you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.